Hello YouTubies! Today we're going to fix the problems of the Mark 1 miniature model of my own car, custom replica, scale model, whatever you want to call it, and we're going to make Mark 2! Stick around! So there are a couple of things I need to consider when I'm making this. The whole point is to make this as much like my own car as possible, as a model of this doesn't exist already. So some of the considerations, much like the Mark 1 that we've got to take into account. Wheels, they're not the most common on any Boxster models that you get. Black rear lights, the spoiler, of course the underbody lights, and the offset front number plate. So let's get into it. Right, so here's Mark 1. Close enough looking wheels, they were too big, problem number one. Everything else was quite happy with. Spoiler was a little bit small, but ultimately it's just the wheels there. There were some other mistakes made along the way that were rectified. This one couldn't have been because I grinded out the body. So this is going to be number 2. Going to start by stripping this one down because obviously you need to get it painted, but I shouldn't have to do a whole lot more modification. And I'm actually hoping I might be able to get away with just nicking that base and swapping them over. We have over here some slightly more size appropriate wheels. They're already being painted, as well as a few other bits. So hopefully we'll do a better job of this one. So I'm going to start with stripping this one down to just the metal, and then working out if we can maybe get away with just primering it and then painting it, as opposed to taking off the paint. And if not, we'll take off the paint. Let's get into it. I'm going to do this one a bit differently because I'm going to try and do this as I go and show you everything. And if you're not listening to this on a voiceover, it worked. If not, I needed to speed it up and do it on a voiceover. So I'm going to start by, I think this is the same model as the one that we had before. So just start by taking out these screws to remove all of the bottom. There we go. Put these to the side because I'm hoping I might be able to just swap the bottoms in essence. And then we pop these bits out. It's as if I've done it before. There we go. You'll forgive me if I'm not talking too much through this, but I, believe it or not, am concentrating. How did I do this last time? Did I take the doors off? Oh, maybe this was the way. Now, like I say, I'm hoping to avoid needing to go down to the bare metal, just because it will save a couple of steps and ultimately a couple of days. But potentially that could end up being a needs must, because I will still need to sand it. I'll just grab another tool. Or a few. Anybody who saw the last video would have seen the bit I included where you saw how much of a state the garage ended up in, simply because I had so many things out. Partly because I was trying to do various parts of this at once, How did I do these bits before? Bear with me. Let's try. Just poke them out. Ultimately here the metal is, the plastic is just kind of like melted. There we go, through. Gonna need to shave off the orange on those again. Because mine's a facelift, as well as adding in the extra bit for the body. Must remember to do that because I'm a bit excited about painting this and getting it going. So could fall into that trap. Always worth thinking about these things and what order you need to do them. I definitely want to do that before I paint it. Okay, backlights out. I think one thing I'm going to try and do this time as well is paint those backlights in a slightly different way, just so that they're a bit better. Because I don't think I used the right paint in the last one. They weren't quite shiny enough to match what's actually on the car. Let's get the razor blade. Hold on. Not really a leverage based tool, that. Where's a gap? Okay. If you've watched any of the videos of the actual car working on it, I normally include a here's what you need. I didn't do it for doing the model car, partly because just everything. I used so many different tools, so many different paints, so many sandpaper, chemicals for the paint stripping, various tools I needed for trying to fix the mistakes that we made. So there you go. Oh, he's coming. There we go. Right, everything to the side. There we have one metal body. Right, let me go and have a look at what we've got for like building up the little edges here, as we had to in the last one, because the bumpers are slightly different, and it's a piece of the facelift one that's like, when you see it and you know it, you notice it. It's one of those things. If you don't know, you don't mind too much, but when you do know, you do. So bear with. I'm going to do a small experiment. I'm going to scuff it up slightly. I've just got a little bit of 400 here, and then put some primer on it, and just see if the primer will take. See if I can avoid needing to take off all the paint. Let's see what happens. So the experiment went well, I think. I was quite happy with it, so I've given it a sand off. You don't really need to watch that, so it's pretty boring. And what I'm going to do now before I prime it is just make these little pieces here that I did on this one. You might be able to see them, just to make the bumper look more like the facelift bumper of my car. I'm going to use this like model putty stuff because I've run out of the stuff that I used to do that one. I've done an experiment over here, seems like it will work fine. So I'm going to go ahead and create just a little lump there, a little lump there that I can then sand down when they're dry. And then hopefully sand them into shape and then be priming them. So that's next. In the meantime, while that's drying, I'm going to just sand off this orange on here because I've got clear lights as per the last model. You don't really need to watch that, it's not going to bother videoing it. I'm just going to use very fine sandpaper like a 2500 grit and yeah, try and make these clear but also not rough. And here I'm just sanding those corner bumper pieces into the at least the approximate shape of what the bumper is. So you might have seen if I included it, the first attempt at this didn't work. I didn't give the putty long enough to cure and go hard and ended up pulling it off. So I'm going to do this, I've done it again, I re-added it, I'm going to do it slowly this time. I'm going to take off the top bit first, and I've been keeping this near heat generally, but I think it still wants a little bit more. So just take off some of the top bit, and as soon as gently, as soon as I start feeling that maybe it's still not quite cured, then I'll set it back to be warmed up and dry again over the next couple of days, and eventually get these shaped out. Here's a quick run through of me shaping the putty. And then excitedly adding some paint. Got a new bottle this time because the other one I had was a little bit old, and that maybe was why it started coming out a bit flat. But a couple of coats of colour. And then over a period, the other day after, a couple of coats of clear lacquer just to make sure that it is coming out nice and shiny. You'll hear the heater on, and that's what's blowing the paper around. I found I got much better results with just having a little bit of excess heat around the area when doing this. And just through fear of making this video too long, I sped this part up. This is just me now going in, fixing in the now clear lights, the rear lights, and some other little accessories to start build the car back up. I did have some slight trouble with the rear lights where we'd built up some layers of paint that were not previously there before. It didn't want to fit fantastic, so I did take the pieces off, trimmed down the backs a little bit, made the stems that stick through a little bit thinner, and then eventually found a way to get them to mount well. Largely this is me just reassembling the car in super speed and having to do a little voiceover because Silly Billy was listening to something in the background I don't want to get copyright stricken for or anything like that. So enjoy watching the rest of this in silence, and enjoy some terrible close-ups of my hands from not being able to get everything in shot correctly, paying attention to what I'm doing and not the camera. Fortunately, I did get away with stealing the base from the other one, so I didn't have to redo all the electrics to get the lights working. Here's me just assembling the rest of the car. And as it's one of the quite characteristic things you'll see if you see my car, it does have the big spoiler on the back. So here I am attaching another homemade spoiler, this one a bit longer because you would have seen in the Mark 1 it was a little bit too narrow for the body of the car. And here you can see the beauty shots, if you like, of the finished results. Very nice. And here's the finished result next to Mark 1. Mark 1 on the left with its oversized wheels, slightly too small spoiler, and actually having seen it, slightly flatter paint. Mark 2 on this side with also the little addition of the offset front number plate as my one has. Have a look from the top, you can see the colours of them are ever so slightly different. Very happy ultimately with how this came out. We'll take a couple of more shots of it and we'll wrap. So forgive the car being filthy. She's not a garage queen, despite living in a garage. She gets driven in the winter. And refilming this, because I filmed this the first time on time-lapse. But we have got similar wheels, the right looking colour brake calipers, black rear lights, the spoiler, not too shabby, the underbodies, as we've already seen, and then the front number plate. There we are. 1 second replica custom car scale model. So, thanks for watching. There we are. That's the Mark II. If you enjoyed watching this, please give us a subscribe. Most people who watch are not subscribed. It'd really help us out. It's not really going to do you any harm. Give us a follow on Instagram at Granty's Garage. And if you've got an interesting custom car that you'd like a model of, that might be a good fun one to build, get in touch. Maybe I can do your car next and I'll get some pictures of you and whatnot. And perhaps even send it to you if you're not too far around the world or anything. Yeah, see you in the next video. And here's the outtake and accidental time-lapse shot.